This week, Omega and Rolex, two of the big heavyweights of the mainstream watch industry, went head to head with a big power flex off. Who can be the baddest watchmaker out there? Rolex's entry into that fight was the new Rolex Deepsea Challenge. Here's my reaction to that watch. Hi, I'm Pete McConville. Welcome to my channel. Here I mostly talk about watches. In fact, I pretty much only talk about watches. But what I also do is overthink, overanalyze, and just really go too deep in general. If that sounds like something you're interested in, strap yourselves in and enjoy the ride. So anyway, let's get into my I was going to say review, but it's not. Just my reaction to the Rolex Deepsea Challenge. First off, what is it? Well, it's a line extension of the Deepsea, taking the kind of overall look, the overall design of what Rolex has been doing with that watch really since 2008, pumping in a bunch of technology and some ideas that came from the prototype that went down on Challenger Deep back in 2008. And they've come up with this new street legal version of that kind of prototype. In general, it looks very much like a Deepsea. Funnily enough, given that it is such a sort of hardcore go to the bottom of the deep kind of watch, it's actually tarted up a little bit. It's got a little bit more chamfering, a little bit more polish than the original Deepsea. So it's actually, some dimensional issues aside, it's actually not a bad looking watch. Typically Rolex kind of straight down the line, mainstream, timeless, if that's what you're into, but it's not offensive in any way. Well, I should say it's not offensive if you look at it in classic disembodied internet, straight down the barrel, nice and flat, in a disembodied kind of white space, then it's a handsome watch, if you like. But take this watch, put it into some sort of context, God forbid, put it on someone's wrist, even just look at the specs, and you can see that this diver has been pumping some serious roids and is dangerously swole. If we look at the numbers, it is 50 millimeters across, 23 millimeters thick, 61 millimeters lug to lug. Put that last dimension into some sort of context. I've got an 8.5-ish inch wrist. If I measure it across, or so that's 21.5 centimeters. If I measure the width of my wrist, it comes in at about 65 millimeters. So that means this watch will fit me with about 1 to 2 millimeters on either side. If your wrist is any smaller than 8.25 inches, this watch is not going to fit. It's simply going to physically overhang the ends of your wrist. It's made from RLX titanium, Rolex titanium. What is that? It's grade 5. My suspicion is the only thing that's special about this is that Rolex is buying the very best quality grade 5 titanium they can. Little diversion, this is pretty common actually. People treat steel as though it's all the same. 316, 904, or titaniums, grade 2, grade 5. The truth is those grades always have allowed percentages of contaminants. They always have ranges of minimum and maximum amounts of alloys. Cheaper alloys will have more contaminants, less of the key components. Cheaper alloys will just barely squeak into meeting the criteria of grade 5 or grade 2, whereas higher quality alloys will street it in and provide you more toughness, more hardness, that sort of thing. My guess is that what Rolex is doing here, like a lot of manufacturers, is simply buying really good quality grade 5 titanium and then just sort of calling their specific part of that band RLX. Oh, there are two other really big numbers to talk about with this watch. The first is 11,000 meters. That is a big number and should not be overlooked. This is a watch that can go to the very, very bottom. Potentially, it could go, you could have to get down to the bottom of the ocean, dig a hole about 10 meters deep, go down that hole, and you could still wear this watch, assuming you weren't human. Any human would have been well and truly crushed. This is purely bragging rights only. There's no sensible reason that you need a watch with this kind of depth rating. But you know what? It is cool. 11,000 meters, not a bad number. And yeah, Rolex has given it to us. The other big number is 36,750. That's the price of getting that cool number and having an ultimately unwearable lump of titanium. Yes, this watch will cost you 36,000. Excuse me. This watch will cost you 36,750 Australian dollars. Okay, so this watch is in many ways utterly ridiculous. So why does it exist? Why has Rolex made it? Well, I think it's pretty straightforward. And in fact, Rolex's video makes the point pretty clearly.
It is the one true heir to our groundbreaking divers' watches of decades past.
Yeah, the intent of this watch is an answer to the Omega Ultra Deep from 2019. That watch, strapped to its own submersible, went, I think, something like 20 meters deeper than Rolex's previous deep sea challenge, whatever it was, that they went. Rolex felt stung by that, felt a need to respond, came back and clearly thought to themselves, Omega's likely to make a street legal version of that Ultra Deep, like Rolex was probably thinking that Omega, like Rolex previously, will probably detune it a little bit and won't give you the full ocean, the full depth version. So Rolex has just jumped in and said, you know what, screw it. The retail version will go the full distance, all 11,000 meters. And that's what they've done. They've really tried to give it to Omega and put them in their place. So the question is, did that work? Well, kinda. It did work in a purely numbers sense. You know, Rolex has now got their record back. Congratulations, well done. Did it put Omega in their place? Well, no, it didn't. In fact, if anything, this effort from Rolex has kind of backfired. It's probably, in my eyes at least, it's made Rolex look a little petty and kind of diminished them a little bit. So why is this watch, which is doing something pretty cool, giving us a certified depth rating of 11,000 meters, a little petty? Why does it make Rolex look small? Well, first off, because as sexy as that number is, it has been done before. You know, Bell and Ross, back in 2004, gave us an oil-filled quartz movement powered watch that went down to 11,000 meters. Yes, it was oil-filled. Yes, it was quartz. But then on the other hand, it was also wearable by normal humans. So Rolex has done something that a mechanical watch hasn't done before, but it didn't feel that unusual. It didn't feel like they'd taken us somewhere we'd been before. On top of that, when you get into the watch itself, a lot of the tech had been used previously. There's no new materials. The looks don't take us anywhere new. All in all, this watch just looks like an exercise in brute force engineering without a lot of elegance or interesting thought that would sort of advance the ball down the field and make us think that Rolex is really doing something interesting as a watchmaker. And the final point with the Rolex Deepsea Challenge is that it's a watch clearly motivated in response to a competitor. And in doing so, it invites comparison to that competitor and invites us to look at, well, what are they doing now? So what is Omega doing at the moment, and how does that look compared to Rolex's Deepsea Challenge? Well, right now, Omega is asking Rolex to hold their trophy while Omega goes out with Rolex's girlfriend, because it's not a response. In fact, that's probably part of the power to this. At the same time as Rolex is responding to Omega, Omega has moved on. Omega has brought us the chrono chime, a 5 hertz, tenth of a second, split second, master chronometer certified chronograph. Oh yeah, that also has a repeater function where it can chime the elapsed time. Those words have never actually been used before. No one has ever made that watch before. Now, you can argue that there's really not a lot of point to making that watch, but there's no point to making any mechanical watch other than being cool. And this is cool shit that no one has done before. Omega has basically done something really new and innovative. And oh yeah, they're doing this for $500,000, but in a way that's part of the flex. At the same time that Rolex is clearly gunning for Omega, clearly saying, what have you done, and responding, Omega has said, I don't give a shit what Rolex is doing. We have left that behind. That is yesterday's news. And that leaves Rolex looking kind of lame. So anyway, that's my take on the new Rolex Deepsea challenge. I think it is essentially a bad idea from Rolex. I don't think it has achieved the aim of elevating the brand. If anything, I think they've diminished it a little bit. It's inelegant. It's graceless. It is an exercise in brute force engineering, clearly designed to respond to someone that is not listening to you, that has moved on and is looking at something completely different. Yeah, I think that sometimes just because you can doesn't mean you should. Rolex shouldn't have done this watch.